Here we go. All ones. This is our first nerd talk, and we have CJ. You want to introduce yourself?
Uh, Hi, I'm CJ. I'm part of the Black Pants Legion and been running Traveller for a good while. Well, basically a forever GM until about, I don't know, a year ago or so for Traveller.
Okay, and what brought you to Traveler?
That's kind of a long answer,
Okay,
but
we'll go that. We'll ask the whole group that then. And
yeah.
next we have Goat. Would you like to
Hi
introduce
there.
yourself?
Yeah, I'm Goat. I'm also in Legion, but I have my own channel as well. I've been running Traveler for only like 4 months, maybe. I'm definitely the newest to it in the group. And Tech's got a bunch of the Mongoose second edition books, and I know there's some controversy associated with Mongoose's edition, but I just thought it was a really cool system. I came to it after we ran Rogue Trader together, and we realized it wasn't a really good system for what we wanted to do. So Tex was like, "Well, you got to learn Traveler." So
Is that your impersonation of how I sound?
it's it's the
You
most
always add like a well, all right, boys, we gotta rustle us up some cattle.
yeah,
Come on.
that's the best I can do. Yeah, I've been running it. It's been a lot of fun. I've built my own Foraven sector from scratch. I've
Very
really
good.
enjoyed it.
And so, Tex, you've already talked. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk about a little bit of how you got into Traveler?
Howdy there, folks. Text the Black Pants Legion here. No. Yeah, I pretty much got into Traveler with a bunch of old grognards who were 3035 D&D guys, and when it came to sci-fi RPGs, they told me that, and this is the 90s, they told me that more or less when it comes down to sci-fi RPGs, there's the flavor of the month stuff that gets continually rebranded. And then there's Traveler, which has been around for fucking ever. And I asked why, because at first to me it felt like just generic sci fi. But what I found out is that it's a universe that's been well crafted, certainly lovingly made, and with amazing attention to detail and consideration of all sorts of things that most of their RPGs kind of hand wave away. Like, don't worry about it. Been playing Traveler a long time, off and on. I did buy a copy of all the other Mongoose books and such, and yeah, I know some people are saying that's not my Traveler, and I'm like, well, right, but Traveler is the game that taught me you have the official universe and your universe, so go fuck yourself. You can make whatever you want.
Yeah, and that's really how Traveler really started. You can make whatever you want.
Yeah, they kind of made the official setting almost reluctantly at first, from what I understand.
That's what I
Yep.
understand too. And somebody who would actually know more about that is our last person to introduce is page 121, the Traveler Man himself.
Yeah, I started, well, not I started, but Traveler did start with a no universe, just like D&D did. And the publisher didn't want to do a universe, and fans kind of pressed him into it. And it's fun, too, because at first the Emperor is this evil creature lurking on his throne, and they decided they didn't want to do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really like. I didn't know about the evil, almost like Warhammer style, because Warhammer copied
Yes.
so much from Traveler. But I didn't know it was supposed to be an evil emperor. I kind of got that from the earlier Interstellar Wars when Soleimani were coming out there and kind of
Yes.
taking over everything. But I didn't get. I kind of always figured the Imperium was more of the evil bureaucracy.
They were initially, and they were ruled by an evil emperor who I think, as they were evolving the setting, was based on the Emperor from Star Wars,
Probably it was
Emperor
Star Wars
Palpatine.
came out what the year after Traveler.
No, Star Wars came out in May of '77. Traveler launched in June of '77.
Hmm.
And Traveler was not a reflex to Star Wars. It had been in production, but I knew about Star Wars as early as 1975, so I think Traveler knew it was on the horizon.
So just to get a little bit of your street cred out there, when did you actually start playing Traveler?
March of '81, Buddy brought it home from college. He was on spring break, and he was one of my D&D buddies, and he said, I've got this great new game. You're going to love it. And I died in character creation, and was completely hooked.
As was the style of the time.
Oh yes, and I was probably 3 or 4 tries before I got my character to survive, and I was hooked. And in
Yeah,
those days, when you died in character creation, you crumpled up the piece of paper and threw it in the garbage can.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm just for transparency. I started. This is actually the one the actual play I'm playing on my channel now is my first campaign. I did do a one shot as a space pirate, which I found incredibly fun. I was a Varger space pirate, just wild, crazy. I was like, I love this game now. Then I died. It was a total party kill. So, and I fell in love with that one, bought all the books, and have been running it for I think maybe 15 sessions now, and I only have part of them on my channel. So, anything you guys want to bring up before we start going into?
I was gonna say that Traveler is this majestic thing that I think is a lot of people look at it as a relic of an old RPG, and I go, no, it's a reminder of what sci-fi used to be, where sci-fi is something made by a community, celebrated by a community, uplifted by a community, written by a community, collectively built by every person who plays it, much like old D&D was.
Yep.
And it's beautifully additive in that. It's a bunch of train cars hooking together and decoupling, and you can play with it any which way you want. It's Legos for an RPG. It's GURPS without being boring or requiring an engineering degree.
Well put.
And thank you.
My first experience with Traveler was the GURPS Traveler, and I won't.
GURPS is great.
Do GURPS.
GURPS is great because you can go, everyone knows that one GURPS GM or DM or whatever you want to call it, where you can go to their house and you can say like, oh man, I'd love to play like Ninja Pirates of Mars. And I want everyone to be in a Korean K-pop band while they do it. And they'll go, oh, all right, well, let me go get the Korean K-pop band sub book and the Ninja Pirates of Mars sub book, volume 8.
Yep.
Yeah, like, that is the what is good about Rifts is it has everything.
Well, I just think that there's a lot of fun to be had in RPGs, and Traveler is one of those games where in D&D, you can say something that should be really a unique or personable outcome, right? You can sit there and go like, oh, and my friends were investigating this tomb, and then there was this giant mouth in the wall, and this giant mouth in the wall had a black orb, and you're like, oh, Orb of Annihilation. Everyone's seen it. Everyone knows what it is. In Traveler, you have stories of like, so then we started to make meth. And you're like, wait, well, why did you do that? And you're like, well, we had to buy these really nice shoes so we could bribe this lady. And you're like, wait, why? And you're like, well, it's kind of a long story. It all started when we stole that pizza.
Yeah,
Have you been listening to my campaign?
I was about to ask, have you been listening to mine with the shawarma cat so that my players
Everyone
are talking about
The meat monkeys.
Oh, yeah,
Everyone-
my players want to clone the shawarma cats.
Everyone has hilarious stories of Traveler, and that's why I love Travelers. Anything goes. And I've read stories where someone's like, we're into My Little Pony, and they go, oh, well, I'm going to do a My Little Pony Traveler game. That's fine. Do whatever you want. You're like, well, okay. And I've seen people who are like, I want to go fight the Korean War in space with ray guns. You can go do that in Traveler.
Oh, yeah.
You can, well, let's go to the right TL level planet and, done.
Yeah,
Have fun.
the cringe one that my players want me to run is an all uplifted dolphin one shot.
Oh man,
Oh no.
we had a character in our Traveler game that was a dolphin extremist that we didn't end up meeting, but Depp running the game told us about it. Osama bin Dolphin. That's Traveler to a T, though.
Oh, yeah.
You can do whatever you want. You can make whatever you like.
Yeah,
and
that's where
it's
even
great.
the lore is so good. Is the lore focuses on the macro, not the micro. So you can do anything in the
Exactly.
micro
Yep,
where your
right.
actual players are.
Well, the way I look at Traveler, and this is where it really gets my, gears turning, is that Traveler is a universe that is so big and so vast with kind of shitty communication. So
Yes.
imagine you're
It's
driving down the
It's the
highway.
Pony Express in space.
Well, sure, but imagine you're driving down the highway. You're driving down the highway, and you miss your turn, and you pull off at the wrong town. What weird shit might you see, right? because you've never been there before. And even though they speak the same language as you do, or, you know, even though they have the same restaurants you do, they're going to be a little different.
And
you
they
know?
have a Wikipedia page on them.
Right. So you pull over and you're like, wow, look at all these alien things that are outside of my realm of understanding in the country you live in. That's Traveler on an intergalactic scale. Most of these planets are 2 stops off the interstate where you're like, I didn't know they still made that. Why is that legal here? That seems dangerous. Why is there a circus in the parking lot of this burned out Best Buy? What's going on? And you're like, cool.
Yeah, it's like, who knows? You might come across meat monkeys.
You never know. And that's the thing. In Traveler, that might be the boring part of your campaign. It might be like, oh, the meat monkeys are there, but their bureaucracy's really bad and the taxes are high.
Yeah, I'm prepping for a world for my players to go to that's going to be a nightmare on bureaucracy, and I'm waiting for them to use that admin skill.
Oh, God, yes.
That could be a great game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just cutting through the red tape. Throw a couple of buettes in there, and you've got a whole campaign.
One of my favorite moments in Traveler was I had a guy, and I was in a game, and this was in high school. This guy, we were on a super future like planet where everything was flying cars and jets and shit. You know, just to the T's, all the cool stuff. And the guy's like, I'm gonna rob the bank and I'm gonna escape on that hover bike, right? so here's what happens. He robs the bank because on this very, low crime, very serene, Roddenberry-ish future planet, people don't react well to violence. So this guy comes in looking like a space pirate, starts shooting everything that has a pulse, and it's just like,
Demolition Man.
Yeah, I am the Ayatollah.
Yep. So he's definitely not the stainless steel rat then.
No, he comes in and he's like, my name is Killfuck Soul Shitter, and just starts, blowing everything away. And of course they give him the money. He gets on the jet bike, hits the kickstand, hits the activation button, and just flies into a wall at Mach 8.
So how did he actually survive that, or?
No, just dead. And I was like,
Traveler.
Yeah, not in Traveler. Like in Traveler, if you wear good armor, that means they will find most of the matter that used to share your DNA after.
Yeah, the first combat I had in my campaign, my players almost had a TKP, and they've been scared to death of combat in Traveler, as it is very, very deadly.
They should. I mean, would you want to get into a gunfight while, walking around on a port?
No, I would not.
Well, I mean, think about it. In Traveler, most of your gunfights are going to be done with fairly moderate guns. But then you live in a universe where if you piss off someone who has real money or real power, they have like things that make phasers look boring. They're like, this gun will allow you to see the skeleton before it melts. And it's like, oh.
FGFG, here we come.
Just a Gauss pistol. The simple technology of just sending a piece of metal at nearly the speed of light will mess up somebody.
But at the same time, most worlds on average have a pretty high law level, so you're restricted to semi shotguns and maybe pistols. Sometimes it's just knives and swords.
That's also another cool part to Traveler, though, is that you can be a sword and board swashbuckling dude who, like, and like swings in on a rope and starts fighting
with the tether, like it's a rope, exactly.
So, do you guys use any special rules for using, like, if you're not using like a shotgun or hand-to-hand weapon, it damages the ship?
So I use the rules in High Guard for boarding actions because the first boarding action we had, my players insisted on the two that had battle dress, which is the big Terminator power armor, insisted on walking aboard in power dress with their heavy weapons.
Oh, wow.
So, so they were at like a minus to do anything because they just don't fit anywhere. And whenever people missed their shot, I was just rolling to see what they were, damaging. So you had shit like, they were shooting out lights, like doors were opening. At one point, they blew a hole in the bridge, and just a bunch of people just flew out because they'd been disabled.
Which is awesome. That's just awesome. That's how it should be. In my Traveler game, I used a impact wrench to more or less there was a big capital ship and we had to do a breach on a part of it to try to take out some of these high level dudes, and my whole approach was like, I'm gonna walk on the hull in my spacesuit. I'm gonna walk up to that big bridge window and I'm gonna take this impact wrench and just back all the screws out of the window. I'm just gonna, what are they gonna do about it? Come out and fight me?
In your John Madden spacesuit.
My players fear any kind of spacewalk because they always fuck it up. Or sorry, I shouldn't be cussing. Mess it up. But Anthony, what do you tell us a little bit about your campaign?
Well, they started out as nice people aboard a scout ship on loan from the scout service. They had access to an NPC who had his own armed far trader, and they're pirates now, as Traveler usually goes.
It sounds like you had planned something else as a GM.
Total merchant campaign that I had planned out about 4 sessions out, and that lasted all of 1.5 games.
That's the hazard. That is the
my
hazard. That's the hazard of DMing. Is
Yes.
You'll sit there and write something out, and you're like, I'm going to write a statement about human isolation in the age of sail, and then your players are like, cool, I'm going to stab the first guy I see.
My wife loves the expression "no plan survives contact with the players."
Yeah,
because that is so
not
true.
Wrong. That's
and
not
if you're
wrong
not ready to just scrap what you've written for the last 3 weeks, then you shouldn't GM because they're gonna change it on you.
And that's one of the things about travel is you can have, like, so let's say, generic fantasy, D&D, whatever. Okay, so they're on the world, and you say the players are on this planet, this world you've created. Okay, so they don't stick to the plan. Well, they go to the next town or whatever. But with Traveller, it's like, no, they go to another planet. It's like, oh god, I got to look up all the nonsense and see what's the tech level, what's the lore level. I didn't expect them to go here.
Well, that's what I did in your game. You were expecting us to go raid this corporate facility, and I just walked into the DMV and I was like, "Do you know who I am? Give me the records for where these guys are. Freedom of Information Act. Come on, I find this noble bitch."
One of my
you
favorite
skipped all the encounters except the last one.
One of my favorite ones is in a Traveller game. I made a vest that looked like it was an explosive vest, right? Out of road flares and just everything else. And the DM goes, well, that's not really explosives. And I was like, do they know that? That's the joy of Traveller. You can just walk around and be like, I'm going to terrorize everyone. They're like, we've got your ship. We've got you cornered. You're like, oh yeah, I'll take you all with me. Unfortunately, I ran into the one group of people who said with road flares. And I was like, damn, they're on to me.
You get those space rednecks, and it's like, "Hey, they're road flares, motherfucker."
Yeah, that's where I was like, "Well, please don't, just not the face."
Leave it for identification,
please.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like in Travelers. All the worlds you have to make up as a GM yourself, and the players are a part of this process too. And I like to I'm playing on the Soleimani Rim, so they have a little bit of familiarity with Earth culture. So I like to do really weird mixes. Well, if you're playing on the Spinward Marches, there's not so much Earth culture out there as kind of like a mix of everything in that little area. Yeah. So I like to throw in all right, this planet is a fusion of Mexico and India, and let them roll with this and see if they can actually pick up on it and fit in within the different cultures. And I like how you can kind of make that up as you go.
Oh yeah,
if they go somewhere like that, they better stock up on toilet paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily the refreshers on the ship are still working.
Yeah. What I've done was they got to a planet and found out the color red was forbidden to be worn.
Oh my god, I'm throwing that at my players.
Yeah, ended up being a problem when they went into the Star Town. Everybody wanted to pick a fight because the color red was provocative on this planet. I had a lot of fun with that.
One of the worst I saw was a planet where they were told that everything was legal. And so the players go down with everything they've got because they're like, this is fucking rad. And the problem was is they found everything was legal, asterisk, with a permit. So what happened was everyone who went down found out that they as soon as they try to leave at the starport, they find like a boot on holding their landing gear down. And they're like, what the fuck? And they're like, well, customs wants to have a word with you. And they're like, well, you had this many lasers and this many this and this many that, and you discharged your firearms this many times, so you owe us like $80,000.
I like how you waited. They waited at the very end to charge you for everything. Let the players have their fun, then charge them.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Just smile the whole time, and as the DM note it, just note it down and be like, yeah, no problem, sure. How many shots? Oh, you shoot him 8 times with a fusion gun. All right, that's cool. Yeah, okay, he's dead. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, you gotta. That's like you've turned it into a super fun site.
Well, look, here's the way. If the game was called Consequences, I would understand feeling bad about it. But the game is called Traveler, which means, oh no, time to leave.
Yeah, you can hop on your ship and get out of there, and just never come back to that world again.
Just outrun your fame, yeah.
Exactly. It's one of those things where, Traveler is one of the few games where I've realized the importance of having like a PR group.
And that's something I'm hoping to bring back on my players. They don't actually listen to my stuff, so hopefully they don't hear this. I'm trying to tether them to a world called York in the Alawati subsector. So
yeah, because you made up a subspecies of humans there, the Yoramani.
Oh yeah, that actually started just from one of my players. Like, I want to play a space barbarian, like somebody in a technologically advanced civilization that uses like rocks.
Yep,
I always just picture the Yoramani as like the Mojo Nixon looking aliens from that one TNG episode.
We've stolen stuff from like Zardoz.
Zardoz is great.
Zardoz.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's literally what Zug, the character that he plays, is like. I basically want to play one of those guys from Zardoz in Travel.
That's one of those things I tell people is like when they get afraid of making stuff, I'm like, professionals made Zardoz. If you just say that, like, I don't know if I could write something. I'm like, professionals made Zardoz. And they're like, you know what? I got this. I got this.
All over it. Yep.
Yeah.
So we have this Zardoz space barbarian who wound up getting in his character creation, getting kicked out of his tribe in the first career path, going to prison after he became a gangster, and we had to write this whole story about it. And then I think he wound up being a wanderer, pulling space junk out of somewhere, and then coming back to York. So we had to write like, what are the Yoramani from York? There's like the Solomani from Sol. So that's where we made up the name, and we had to kind of like write this background and kind of make it up. And my players love pushing me for making up stuff. That's how we wound up with meat monkeys. I was just like, oh yeah, what kind of meat do you have? Meat monkey. Tell me more. Oh fuck. Now we have something weird.
We're always going to say that when you don't have it ready.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that's cool about Traveler is that you can also just make anything you want. I've seen people use this game to do anything. CJ ran a game where it was basically submarine operations on an alien planet. I've seen other games where people have done Wild West in space better than Firefly. Yeah, better than Firefly ever pretended to. I've seen a lot of people just make amazing, amazing, amazing stuff where they can just read a science fiction or fantasy novel from, again, My Little Pony to World War II to Korean War to Napoleonic era to, K-pop band. Anything you can come up with fits in this universe somewhere.
Oh yeah,
and is valid. Is
we
valid.
Did that in a group I was a player in. We picked up. We needed a stewardess because like the GM, we had robots for it, but the GM was like, oh, well, all the high passengers are disappointed that it's a robot. So we went to this really dystopian, autocratic water world. So we pick up this like mermaid lady who's this washed up pop star because she turned 30. And she's just like really depressed. She's drinking on the job all the time, but she does okay as a stewardess. So they're like, well, she still has all those skills. Let's get her involved some more. So we bring her on this expedition where we're hunting this like rancor. It's literally a rancor. You know, and we're sitting in the wreckage and we're waiting for our shuttle to come in and pick us up. So we're like, hey, let's do a music video. This is a set. Let's do a music video about it. Let's restart this person's career. And that was a lot of fun.
And sadly, I wasn't recording my sessions yet. But one of the best encounters I think I had in my Traveler game was they're in Iridasha in the Albawadi subsect, which is a high-tech world. But it said somewhere in the notes on the wiki that they love sports. So I made them like as planets obsessed with like, imagine like, what was that? The movie with the motorcycles and roller skates in the 60s?
Rollerball.
Yeah, rollerball, but it was on jet skis on the water because most of the planet was water. So I made Zug. I just randomly rolled, and Zug happened to be the guy. So he looked like one of the most popular, most well-known character person who had just who was a big star in the sport who had just gone missing. So they had to, the encounter was they had to go onto like their version of the Tonight Show and bullshit that he was him. It was fucking great.
I think that's great.
Yeah,
I remember.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, one of the funniest things I saw in Traveler was someone basically made the going to another planet so much of a pain in the ass that the players literally just, like, quit. And it was really funny because they just mimicked a travel experience they had, like, shitty accommodations, renting a really lousy car, you know, just all of the things that could go wrong. And the players are like, this is bullshit. And the guy's like, this is a vacation I had in Tampa. You know, like the DM was punishing people vicariously. And I was like, that's great, though. There's not a lot of games that let you really play weird things out like Traveler does.
Yeah, that's the thing is there's so many worlds. Like if you go to travelermap.com, there's easily probably over 1,000 worlds in just the Imperium
Like
alone.
over 10,000.
Yeah. So each world is not just a culture in itself, but it's a multicultural world within this giant Imperium. So you can basically do whatever you want in this giant world. Which is one of the reasons I love Travelers. It gives you the seeds of creatism. While with the you don't have to use the actual parent world to run the game, but you still have this overall spacer culture. But it doesn't really come down on you until you start throwing middle fingers at the local Imperial Patrol.
Yeah, it doesn't matter until you start you know, committing acts of piracy and shit because you got that mortgage.
Yeah.
Traveler always goes to that.
Yeah. Oh, we couldn't make our payment.
That's too real, though. I mean, I know
Pirates.
people
Yuppie
people who
Nuremberg defense.
hate. Oh, it's the yuppie Nuremberg defense. Why did you do this? I have a mortgage. Sorry, but that's the thing is you end up with players who I've seen hate Traveler because they're used to D&D where they think that if you have a lot of money, people will just let you keep it. Traveler is one of those things where you make a lot of money and all of a sudden more and terrible things happen to you.
Yep.
Because all of a sudden you're a person of means and the people of means who see you claw up to their level go, who the fuck is this guy?
And it's a great motivator for players to actually do something.
Oh yeah, I mean, having ends meet and everything else, I know people who hate the system of having to pay for stuff and mortgage and income and all that shit. And I go, right, but how did Han Solo start in Star Wars?
Exactly.
He had to make up for fucking up because he's in debt. That's what's interesting. That's how you meet people. Some crazy kid and an old man in a robe are like, I'll give you this much to get me here, no questions asked, you know? And you have to lie that your piece of shit ship can fly, you know, a certain amount of distance
Yeah.
And,
as a measure of time.
And seriously, getting passengers in a Traveler game is nothing more than finding out that the probably drug addict wannabe space wizard is not what he seems to be.
Well, that's what I love in Traveler is Traveler Traveler does come off like Star Wars in some aspects because that sounds like something a Traveler crew would do. They're like, how fast is your ship? It's the fastest ship around. It's a total piece of shit with like exposed wiring and looks like it's been smoked in by a whole family. and, and you're
There's
like,
a yellow
And
film
the guy's sitting
everywhere.
out there, I did the kill to run at 2 parsecs. Well, that's a measurement, not a timing.
it's just like, I
He
did
cut
the Kessel
corners.
run and
I did the
numbers.
Kessel run at 2 miles.
I made that engine myself.
One way to freak out your players is to give them a bunch of passengers who seem weird and aren't,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
end up being completely boring. Your players will keep waiting for the shoe to drop. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing with the Sindalian Empire in general, which is this, ancient empire that collapsed a long time ago. But
Yeah.
It's described as just kind of over the top evil, where the reason it fell is because they were like, "Oh, you were late on your taxes, orbital bombardment," and they have all these like
Man.
Baroque David Lynch kill bots, and everything's all just ostentatious and shit. So.
I like it.
Yeah. So they collapsed like 2,000 years before my game started, but the culture's still around. There's still successor states and shit that are trying to rebuild it, but they're still Sindalian, even if they're not evil. So they have names like Betrayio Traitoris and Backstabio and shit like that. so
I don't know where you stand with him, huh?
Yeah, they all talk like Emperor Palpatine, but they're mostly pretty much on the level. But then your players are like, "Oh, what the fuck is up with these guys? Like,
Yeah.
what are you, racist against Sindalians? What's your problem, dude?"
Exactly. You freak them out.
So, why do you guys think that people should play Traveler?
Open world.
Yeah, open world, and you can make anything. And if your players fucking hate it, they can just leave. It's playing Traveler is like going on an RV adventure, but a movie version of an RV adventure, where every time they open that door, there's something new, crazy thing that happens. And Traveler is a universe that is as much yours as it is the universe. Also, it's a universe that has a fucking wiki and a giant map, and it's all beautifully made.
Yes.
And it's maintained by the community who gives an honest shit. And so there is all this detail to where even if you know nothing, even if you know not a goddamn thing, you can go out there and simple as pie, type in stuff, hit enter, and there's enough to work with. There is more than enough frameworks to build any house you want, appropriate for your players' interests. It's one of the few games that does that without you needing to buy 85 books and splat books to have the same adventure regurgitated with just some new players your players make stuck on the same linear paths.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best open world games I've ever played. And I played a ton of open world games, including Rifts, which is basically open world, open reality.
The thing I do enjoy about it is we mentioned Third Imperium, but there's many other like just little settings. One article, a blog I like is by a chap called Chris Kubasik, and he has written several posts called Classic Traveler Out of the Box. It's just taking the 3 original black books and then coming up with your own setting and universe. And apparently Mark Miller does the same, at least according to some interviews that he's done with him. Paul Elliott over at Zoza Games read that blog, and he came up with 2 very interesting settings. Outworld, which is based on, inspired by Alien and Outland. And Outland is a very good film. Highly recommend.
Very
I'm
good
sure
film.
plenty have seen Alien, but Outland.
A lot of
is
Sean
highly-
Connery today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cosmos
like-
68.
I like Outland for really weird reasons. I'm a gunsmith, and so Outland is one of the few on-screen appearances of the Browning B2000 shotgun. And every time I watch that movie, though, I just steep in it and I go, man, there was a whole era where retrofuturism and cassette futurism were just at peak, where all the computers were the size of a building and everything had toggles and switches.
And people were smoking in oxygen-rich
everyone smoked.
environments.
Everyone smoked all the time. and it was like, oh no, there's a bad guy. What do we do? 12 gauge. There was no like, oh, get the ray gun, get the 12 gauge.
12 gauge or cutlass.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just he's got a hole in his suit.
I think the zero gravity. Sorry, go ahead. But I think the zero gravity jail cells sound fun to me. But whatever.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'd just sleep in that. That'd probably be nice.
Or if bad prisoners get the 6G jail cell.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's some shit right there. That would be.
Oh, you want a shorter sentence? Okay.
There's my knees.
It is just really fascinating. All the little supplements out there. You want to play Call of Cthulhu with Traveller? You've got Chthonian Stars.
Yeah.
You want military science fiction? You've got Hammers, Slammers, and somebody wrote a book based on those. What else we got here? You've got I put out all my books for this.
It even has
You wanted to say have the story set on an early colonies on Mars. You got Outpost Mars. I've got a bunch of Zoza ones here, so Outpost Mars is a good example. XCOM, we've got Attack Squadron Roswell. You know, you've got all these weird and wonderful settings for the Traveller, and the nice thing is it's just such a because it's just it's just 2d6. It's very generic. It's very universal. I've got like somebody wrote a Traveller in the 1700s. You want to play 1700s America with all the different peoples that were around at the time and roll up characters like that. You can do that. It's really nice.
They even had a Beastmaster, like the movie. It was a great book series too, which turned out to be science fiction. But yeah, but great. They even have a setting for that. They also have a tabletop war game. I'm not sure if anybody knows about that one.
Which
Yeah, I heard of
Snapshot?
What was Striker? I do believe is the name.
Striker? Yeah, that's for space. Snapshot's for shipboarding.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they actually had a shipboarding one.
They have a bunch of games from the original Traveller. Mayday, Snapshot, Striker, Dark Nebula, Frontier War.
Have you played these? I haven't myself. Could you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yeah, these are all going back to the roots of wargaming, which is kind of where Traveller came from, like D&D. And they're box sets, and they have the little counters, and then each has their own rules, usually based on 2d6. And you can play this game, but have it work with your Traveller campaign. So if I'm doing Striker, I can do a shipboard combat using Striker rules, but that can it actually translates my Traveller characters over to Striker.
That's really
And they move seamlessly. And it's all point-based movement. So you have 6 movement points. Will cost you 2 to go forward, 2 to turn, and 1 to press a button, or to open a door rather. And you can do that with your actual Traveller characters. And then when you want to pull them out of that, you're just back to your regular Traveller game. And then Fifth Frontier War is a lot more complicated than that. But you can actually do the Fifth Frontier War and all the phases of it based on Traveller history using the game.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, they're older. You can find them on eBay now and again. I mean, these go back to the early 80s, and in some cases late 70s. But they're a lot of fun. It's my buddy who introduced me to Traveller. He and I used to just closet away in his family room, and we would just sit and play this stuff.
Yeah, I've had many nights like that as a kid myself. What brought all you guys to Traveller?
I ran Rogue Trader like a year or two back, and I wanted to basically, Tex was in it, we wanted to basically do like Vasco da Gama's expedition to India in 40K space. So they had like a decent frigate.
That's very
they had
specific.
they had a small personal army.
We're history nerds. Come on.
Yeah.
we love. I mean, well, not only history nerds, I'm autistic, so I like very, very specific mumble. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we wanted to have something where they go out into the unknown and they find this, everyone's talked about it, but nobody can find it. It's got this stuff that everyone wants, this exotic kingdom, and then they want nothing to do with you, but you're going to force them to trade with you anyway. But as we went on and, they were dealing with shit, it just came down to like, why are we going to go down and do it ourselves? We have an army. We have like billions and billions of money and resources to just do stuff. and it just more and more just became like, okay, well, you have like staff meetings and decide on policy. And if I tried to run it a little bit more based on modules and shit, it was just Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like, oh, they go to this place and then they go down there themselves, and then spooky skeletons come out and attack them. So I was like, we ended that game because it just got to the point where it didn't make sense to continue.
Well,
So
that's
then,
the issue with Rogue Trader is largely at a certain point you become so powerful. It's like
it's Marco Million shit.
exactly. It's the same situation of if you are playing like epic level D&D, eventually you basically get out your stat sheets and you're like, wow, this guy has 800 more stat than I'm not even going to roll this because this is like 40 charts. You lose. You know what I mean? Like it just gets into that.
Where the combat's gonna last 4 hours.
Exactly. Traveler's like a real gunfight. It's like bam, bam, done.
Yeah, I think Mark Miller was in Vietnam.
Yes.
Yeah, it shows in the rules.
Yeah, it does.
So Tex got the Mongoose 2 books. So I read them. I was like, oh hey, these actually make sense because I've been traumatized by FASA handling, not FASA, CGL handling Shadowrun 5th edition.
Yeah, I'm
And,
a hardcore
there's
Shadowrun
like
player.
Yeah, you'll see typos and shit in the Mongoose 2e stuff all the time, but there's an index that works. It's readable, and there's pictures for all the stuff in there. You know exactly what everything is and does. And I ran it, and it's been my favorite system so far.
Yeah, I really enjoy the Mongoose system. It's very simple, very easy. It's simple to play, simple to understand. Outside of character creation, where you're not making the choices yourself, is the one thing that confuses people who are new to the game.
I'd actually let my players kind of interact with the dice. If we end up with rolls that just don't flat fit the character, I'll let them re-roll.
Could you go into that?
Basically, a big one at our table is medical debt. Because life is life. We're not real fans of it because we deal with that garbage all the time. So I pretty much have outlawed medical debt. I don't let it be a drag on my campaign. And that's strictly because I've had some people that have had a lot of medical issues and are dealing with it. And they don't want to carve a couple hours out of their life to deal with medical debt.
That's actually important. If your players are not okay with it, don't put it in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's more than
that's all
reasonable.
down to a session 0 and why you should have it.
Exactly. And we discussed that in, I guess I'll call it a session half because I couldn't talk them into a session 0. But I snuck one in.
I take it they're Grocknards then.
No, actually, I'm the guy that reads all the books, and they just take the game as whatever I tell them, which is kind of nice. But they just didn't want to spend a night just creating characters, and I was trying to tell them how much fun it is.
It really is. A game
so I snuck one in later. Oh, it is. It's a blast. And my boys, my 2 sons, actually play in our campaign, and they asked me, "Hey, can you roll us up in Original Traveler and kill us?" And I said, done. It's easy as can be.
No problem, son. Yeah, watch and learn.
That's I posted a video about 6 or 8 months ago of them getting killed in Original Traveler character creation. And they just wanted to, there's their T-shirt out there, and they're saying, "Oh, we want to be eligible for the T-shirts." So they did
it. Yeah, I actually haven't died in character creation, but I do have the T-shirt.
Oh, my first experience, and I absolutely laughed my butt off, and I thought it was wonderful. But as far as stuff that they don't like, if someone has an idea, my son Adam has based his character, God help us all, on Professor Moriarty.
That's good.
Yes, so he is the lurker, the spider in the web, and he wants to manipulate all this stuff. So he's dropping all these little tendrils whenever they stop at ports. And that's hard to track, but it's really been fun. Well, I had to help him kind of develop that Professor James Moriarty character as he was making it in die rolls. So if something came up where suddenly he went to prison for whatever, that kills the Moriarty aspect, because that was the point of Moriarty, is nobody knew he was out there. And so I said, okay, you didn't, but you suffered, this injury. Didn't result in medical debt, but I took away a stat or something. I forgot what compromise we came to, but I took away like a point of dex or something from him. And he's fine. He wants to be the intellectual. He doesn't want to be out there firing the gun. He wants to fool the guy into firing the gun. And it's been a lot of fun. and he's the youngest player at our table, and it's been interesting watching him try to manipulate everybody.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of the opposite as a GM. Like, when I sit down with my players, I told them like, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna follow this as is, and the characters you get are gonna be what you get, and you're gonna have to figure out how to play them." Luckily, I have really good players who went along with this because I think in the past, if I gave it to some of my older players, they would have rebelled against me, and I would have been like burned at the stake. But yeah, we all sat down together. I told them we have to sit down together in one session to make characters at the same time, and we all went around the table rolling each 4-year career path. And two players wound up going to prison at the same career path, so they wound up. We said they were cellmates, and that's one of their connections.
There you go, their connection. Yeah,
I love the connections in.
I love that role,
and that's what I like about Traveler is that connection. You have 3 connections per player, and that's why you're traveling together. Is you have a previous history with each other, and if you sit them down together and get that previous history, it all works out. Like my player Kat, her character wound up knowing Barry because they were both in the Soleimani Navy and got in a bar fight together, and that's how Barry got a serious injury. But yeah, it's a great character creation system. And sorry, I should have let you guys continue going. I'm ranting.
Oh well, you're here to tell about why you got into it too.
Yeah,
fair,
absolutely.
Fair. I don't think we heard from CJ yet.
Yeah.
What do you think on this topic?
How I got into Traveller, so some context, I grew up in a rural area, and we didn't get internet until maybe later than most people in the UK. But I was really into my computer RPGs, what you could get from a store that's since closed, Woolworths.
Oh yeah.
And I was looking for the, but obviously I'd heard of Dungeons and Dragons, but that was about it, so I had, was it Icewind Dale and all that. But when I got an early internet connection and I started looking for things like RPGs, and I came across a few, and there's a hell of a lot more free RPGs, so I came across lots of weird ones, but I came across this very strange, there's this Traveller stuff, and it was to do with 2300, which is a setting I'm actually still yet to run, but it was this odd little like blogs that focused on the military aspects of
Yeah, if you run 2300, definitely hit me up. I've been wanting to play that for a while.
So I came across this odd little site, which is actually still going. It's years old, and there's still you can look up the GeoCities archives now as well for some of the stuff. But and they've basically got structured lectures, which are like there's lessons learned from a war, that events taking part in that setting. And then I got into Traveller, and I got some copies of the books, and eventually I got a note with the Mongoose edition, which was my favorite for quite a while. And I started running them alongside AD&D clones like Osric and stuff. So I'd run Fantasy sometimes, and I'd run Traveller the other weeks. And I ended up favouring Traveller quite heavily.
And what year did you get in Traveller?
Sorry?
What year did you get? I believe you got into Traveller in the 90s?
Late 90s, early 2000s. I struggle to remember the precise years.
Out of curiosity, were you playing Classic Traveller or Traveller GURPS or Mega Traveller at the time?
I believe it was Classic. Classic. It wouldn't mean GURPS. I'm not a fan of GURPS. And I think Traveller on its own is pretty, actually a very good generic roleplay system anyway, because you can have so much else. You don't even need to get into the sci-fi aspects.
By the way, the GURPS books are really good. They're very well written and give a lot of good ideas.
Yeah,
I'm currently
okay. Fair enough.
Mechanics.
And they're system agnostic for the most part. All the history and stuff, it's really useful.
Yeah, the main issue is if you want to use their starships, you got to convert from Imperial units.
Yeah.
But
recently I've got was it Traveller 5 and Mark Miller's book as well, The Agent of the Imperium, which is really good. And
that's a good book.
I enjoyed that. Yep.
But Traveller 5 is something else, and it's just it's very interesting. It's like, is there anything you could envisage in Traveller, things to happen? Like, then it's probably in T5. It's like the different interactions in a social conversation and how the players are approaching it. There's a table for that. It's
Yes.
quite astounding.
I hear it's about as
it's
I hear it's about as crunchy as Shadowrun.
It's rules intensive.
It's
Yeah,
more
very.
crunchy than Shadowrun,
Oh, my
but
God.
only if you
Ow.
want it to be. Only if you want it to be.
Yeah.
GURPS
Yep.
you can actually layer, and it still works just fine. So you can just say everything's just straight 3d6 rolls. You don't track weapon accuracy or distance modifiers. It's just roll under your gun skill to shoot someone.
Yeah, I got into Traveller and I started running it for a friend of mine and his little brother, and we alternated between the sci-fi and the fantasy. So fantasy one, well, that was unrelated, but for the sci-fi, there was Firefly and some other stuff around at the time that I was basing it off.
Yeah.
So that was good.
I think Joss Whedon said that he based Firefly off of a undisclosed RPG, and I think we all know which one it is.
In the first episode, they said something like, "Let's go, travelers."
Hang on, travelers, as they're taking off.
That's it. Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that while people really kiss the ass of that series, I'm like, any Traveller game I've been in has been a lot more Firefly than Firefly ever was.
Exactly. I mean, they just shaved the serial numbers off, is all they did for the TV show.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier, the different cultures between like isolated worlds versus like main core worlds, same kind of thing in Traveller. You can just go off the deep end of like making up like a cultural mismatch of like whatever you want on that,
or just make it up from scratch, because there's a bunch of human species that were transplanted by the precursors and
that's
from caveman time. So it's just, you can make up whatever you want.
That's where we got the Yoramani from. We were talking earlier. They're milk vodka drinking people from the desert who love to fight and do crimes.
Yeah, and get raised by chicken lizards, apparently.
Why not?
Chicken lizard racing and fighting are very old school traditions of the Yoramani. I'm making that up as I speak now.
That's a good resume.
What was it? There's 3 worlds in the Yoramani cluster, and one of them doesn't do the chicken lizard jerky. They do a stir fry, and it's really, really good.
There you go.
So changing up the cultures within certain areas is a lot of fun. That's what's great about an open sandbox. And Goat, I don't think we actually talked about. I don't think you yet have talked about how you got into Traveller.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
I ran Rogue Trader, remember?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and then it was like, this isn't good for what I want to do.
I have an attention span of a gnat, so sorry.
So does everyone these days. Don't worry about it.
So
then you found a game that does Rogue Trader better than Rogue Trader. So.
Yeah, well, it's like my one of the players from my Traveller game was in the Rogue Trader game, and he was like, "Yeah, this is what I wanted to do with Rogue Trader."
Yeah.
So I got 3 more notes here, and I'm trying to figure out which one should go first. Why do you think the Traveller goes under the radar of other gamers who haven't played Traveller?
I think it's because it has about the same effective PR as a VHF station somewhere in the Midwest. Like, people are like, if you mention like, oh, have you heard of Count Scary in Detroit, the late night horror host? And you're like, yeah, people within a 20-mile radius have. But a lot of other RPGs have reached out further. They have more broad appeal, or they've had a lot more in PR. Traveller's had a lot of additions, revisions, and the other issue is that Traveller is one of those things from 1970s gamer cons and filk-loving, old school nerds who play Leslie Fish for people, and they stare at you like, what's wrong with you? And you're like, it's banned from Argo. You know what I mean? Like, it's for people who get all of that old school pulp novel sci-fi shit. And a lot of the other stuff is, style but no substance. Traveller is all substance. There's so much to play with. And people aren't used to that richness. It's like offering tiramisu to somebody who has never had sugar. And if you give someone that sort of experience with Traveler and you don't tell them it's Traveler, they're like, wow, what is this amazing homebrew? And you go, it's literally Traveler. And they go, oh. And then they forget about it. And I don't know why, but Traveler's never had that sort of
Meta plot.
well,
branding.
it's never had the branding really, but it's also never had the silly meta plot where people try to tell you how deep it all is, man. You don't know, it's so deep. And I'm like, no. Most games are about as thin as, you know, a communion wafer.
Yeah,
It's like
I'm a bit of an old school grognard, and I've always had that one guy who sits in the back of the gaming store, like smoking a cigarette and giving you the creepy eye, like, have you heard of Traveler, man? You need to play it.
you want to buy some RPG adventures? I got some in my van, man.
Yeah, you're
That's
just like,
what it,
okay,
that's what
I'm
it was
good.
like in the 80s, though, wasn't it? Like,
It really was.
You literally had like a guy in the parking lot selling you the Star Wars Christmas special because nobody could find it anywhere.
Yeah, because he has like a Betamax copy machine in his house, and he's like,
Yeah.
he taped it, and he's like, yeah, Lucas is gonna break my legs one day, man. Anyways, $5 if you want to see some Wookiees sing.
I saw that in original broadcast, by the way.
Oh,
Wow,
man.
and you remember it, so you weren't
remember
drinking
it. It's trauma. I've been in car accidents too that I remember very well. It was similar.
I rate this as a similar trauma as sudden cranial impact. Thank you very much. The Star Wars Christmas special is like falling down the stairs, you know?
And getting
It's
up
one
and
of
doing
those
it again.
things. Yeah,
Is
it's
that the
one of those
one
things
that had
where
the Wookiees talking to each other in the Wookiee
Yes.
language?
Yeah,
Oh my
yep.
god! Yeah,
And
it
Harvey
had-
Korman in drag saying "Stir whip, stir whip."
it had a lot of ideas. And the Star Wars Christmas special is like, what if you took the trimmings from a Star Wars movie and loaded it in a shotgun shell and then just shot someone with it?
Yep.
You're just like, wow, is that a murder or is that art? I don't know. But anyways, moving on. It's just one of those things of weird ideas that is propelled into somebody at an uncomfortable speed for an uncomfortable duration.
But
It
sounds
is
a lot like Traveler.
yeah, but see, Traveler, you can at least
Traveler's
choose the
good.
outcome. You know, Traveler
Doesn't have to
also,
be bad.
yeah, Traveler doesn't have to be bad. I've had some bad Traveler DMs, and that is also an issue. Is that you run into a lot of DMs who use Traveler who want something fundamentally different. They're like, I want my sci-fi to be hard sci-fi, and I'm like, okay, then why don't you just call it The Expanse? Like you
They
can
actually
do
have
that.
they have an RPG for
That was Traveler's early problem. Is there were a lot of GMs who did that and were insisting on real physics and everything else, and it also gained an early reputation as being a difficult game to learn, which compared to D&D, I don't understand. But and
yeah,
it
it's like
pushed
you
a lot
call
of
that
people away.
difficult. Or call that difficult and look at shit like Thaco. You know,
Right.
It's like I'm sorry, but no, Traveler's not harder than Thaco.
Oh, we
I just want to
predate
point
Thaco.
out in 5th edition, Thaco is still there. It's just worked in reverse and positive numbers. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
What
it's
what we're saying is most people don't like math.
Yeah. When,
Play champions.
I believe in the classic Traveler, you actually had a math chart of figuring out how long it would take you to get to planets at a distance.
I know for some people, character creation has been a turn off. It's like, well, they have an idea that they want to create, but they get you want the character you might get out of it isn't won't be what you intend necessarily. And really, it just depends on whether you're whether you're rolling and then just placing the stats at the time, or if you want to assign your numbers and such to try and focus the character towards path. But then they end up with, oh well, this guy's first term he went to prison, second term he got disabled and the army, and now he's out with medical debt, and it's like, oh okay, well let's throw that one away. Or in the case of even classic Traveler, it's like, well, here's a good character and you failed your survival roll, and then they're put off by that.
Yeah,
So that might be an aspect.
Well, the thing about Traveler though, and this is rare, most RPGs, most D&D, whatever, if it's a really complex D&D game, or you need to have bring something to the table, you have to basically write a character backstory and motivation like a defense white paper. It needs to be like 800 pages and have references and all this other shit. And it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But if you go into Traveler and you're like, I don't know what to make, Don't worry about it. Let's roll up a character. You have your motivations, you have your background, you have links to other characters, you have a reason to be in the universe. No thinking required, really, other than a few minor choices of etiquette and design. And then you go, begin. And you have your game there. And it's
And,
beautiful.
and you don't
Yeah,
have to do
indeed.
the we all meet at a tavern session 1.
In Traveler, it's we all get out of jail. Like, it's like, well,
It's true.
We met at a
Explain-
murder.
I mean, I think it's an advantage, but I think that in terms of like, it can be. I think that's what one of the why it maybe goes under some people is the what might be perceived as a barrier to entry is actually one of its biggest selling points.
Yeah,
but one of my favorite Traveler moments was I remember a campaign where we all started waking up in the dock in court and in line instead of introducing our characters at the tavern and why we adventure. We had our backgrounds read to us by the bailiff and then the charge of what we'd done the night before we forgot about. And it was
Very good.
fucking hilarious. All the party was just the locals. The local police had rounded up because none of them were from there. That's a story.
Yeah.
I'm
And
actually,
for my
I
group,
might have to steal that one.
yeah. And for my group, all but one of the players, player characters just failed out of the careers they wanted to go in. Like our Marine guy, I gave everyone one reroll. So the Marine used it to get into the Marine Academy, got out with honors, then he joins the Marines and mishap. He gets forced out of the service. And the other one goes in to become like this secret spy agent intel guy, and then the event says, "Oh, you got to go undercover, roll deceive." And she's like, "I don't have deceive. I didn't get training for that. I'll do it anyway." And she got forced into hiding. Other guy got run out of business just when he got forced out just when he was going to start being able to collect the pension. So,
And
but they all
what's
fell
really
forward.
cool is
Yeah.
in Traveler you still get bonuses for that, and some of the best characters are what you don't expect. So one of the things I love about Traveler character creation is it's much like life. This is what I want to do. Well, this is where I'm at.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's
definitely.
the thing about Traveler is it's too real. Like I've had so many terrible misadventures and terrible, horrible things happen to me for no fucking reason other than I misrolled somewhere. Like I like to joke when people ask what I do for a living or the things I've done. What they go, how did that happen? And I go, I got
Traveler
lost on the way to
character
grad
creation.
school. I got lost on the way to grad school. I rolled some bad dice. And that happens. That's like real life. I cannot tell you how many times I've met people who go, Traveler character creation is really intimidating. And I go, all right, from age 18 onward, describe the positive things that have successfully happened in succession to lead you to the life of plenty and joy you possess now. And they go, fuck you, that's not nice.
I lucked out. Had really good players who thoroughly enjoyed the character creation process, and I think it's mainly because I made them all sit down and do it together, not one by one. And I think it's very important in character creation of Traveler.
I think I've sold them on the next campaign that they'll do it.
Nice, yeah. When you sit them down and make them all roll each, I can't remember what it's called, but each career path, each 4-year period,
Charm.
together.
Charm.
So you roll your first one, you roll your first one, you roll your first one, and go around the table, and they start thinking and connecting to each other, and start building up their characters together and making those connections of why they're flying out, why are they traveling out in the black of space together. Then they like Zug and Arthur in my campaign. They're famous for making toilet wine, and that's how they know each other from their time in prison.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Got to
They're
get
still-
some Pruno.
Yeah, I remember they're still doing that in your game.
Yeah,
By the way,
Aslan Jungle Cat loves drinking it too.
I have had Pruno before, and if you ever get the choice, pass. Don't do that. You should not be able to chew your wine.
So, anybody else have an answer to that question of why they think Traveler has gone under the radar of everybody?
PR.
PR, and also
PR.
it puts a lot of onus on you as a player to come up with stuff and figure it out yourself, because it's not something that's super automated the way that say Dungeons and Dragons is.
I
You
actually
don't
never
have a
thought about
spell
that.
list. You have you have your skills and you have your tools, and what are you going to do with that? You got to figure it out yourself.
Yeah, you don't know what you're gonna get, and you have to be the problem solver to figure it out how to do it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it forces you to actually do everything yourself. The ships are very automated by modern standards, but still you got to have someone that's monitoring the engine readouts and stuff and doing damage control, and you got to have somebody to pilot. And it's not necessarily going to be the best person in your group doing that, because maybe somebody might have rolled up kill fuck soul shitter who got double promoted every term and has all these skills, but you can't do everything at once.
Well, of course. And one of the things that's great in Traveler is like a good engineer in Traveler is basically a good engineer in real life. You're not an expert. You can't rebuild the warp drive. You're not Wesley Crusher where you can just go, gee, mom, I have a science experiment that helps me build a new blah, blah, blah. No, it's one of those things like there's a hole in this ship. Well, if you give me the frame of your bed, I might be able to weld it in that hole, cover it with canvas, and epoxy it. It'll hold.
Well,
And
it's
you just do stuff that's very sketchy, just like real life.
yeah, what you did was there was a mine.
No, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had a mine. We had a mine attached to the hull, and it was supposed to be this huge thing of, can we disarm the mine? Can we reprogram the mine? Could we figure out what its threshold is? Do we talk to the people who laid the minefield and blah, blah, blah? While the whole party's figuring that out, my character goes out on the hull with the impact wrench and just removes the panel and kicks it away. Just like, be gone.
How many levels of impact wrench do you have?
Enough.
Yeah.
Krobon the Mighty was a
Krobon the
fantastic
Adequate.
crew. Yeah, Krobon the Adequate, who slowly became Krobon the Mighty,
There you go.
was pretty much the worst engineer in the fleet, but good enough. Good enough.
I
And
believe we
often
did
good enough
forget
is all
about.
you need. Sorry.
I believe, I believe we did forget about the missing panel, and then we had re-entry.
Whoops.
Yeah, that was awesome. They were like, "This is broken." And I was like, "Or is it better?"
Yeah, the other reason I think it might not be for everyone is that it's a very lethal game. We've touched on that before, and when it can take a whole last session to character, sometimes that's a turn off. So there's ways around it. You can you can go to the companion book and put like a luck mechanic so people get free
Yeah.
rerolls, or you can just make it more cinematic or campy, or you can just do the smart thing. And if you have some spare room on your ship, for 1,000 credits a month, you can have a red shirt. You can just hire a Marine and just have them go do a lot of the fighting for you. And if they die, it's like, oh no, I gotta find some other schmuck on Craigslist the next
Yeah,
jump.
we need another Jimmy.
Hey, how
Yeah.
come this red shirt's got a bunch of holes in it?
Don't worry about it. That sounds like a yellow shirt question, doesn't
Yes.
it? When you get there, you'll find out.
Yeah, one of the things on skills I like, I'm not sure if you guys do it the same way, but as rules as written in at least the Mongoose version is, you have to justify your stat plus skill combo. I'm not sure how much you guys do on that, but in the one session I played before I played in before I ran the campaign I do now, the only two games I played in, I was stuck in 0G and couldn't grab anything, so to move, instead of using athletics, I used gun combat to use the skill I justified was gun combat, slugs, and dexterity for shooting to get myself moving out of the out of there. So the
I did that in the game.
justification of what skill you use. Have you ever had a player, or you as a player or a GM, have a character throw some kind of like monkey wrench into your plans of like, ha ha ha, I know none of you have these skills to do this, and then like they give you a really good justification of like, oh fuck, yeah, you can do it.
I need to get my players to take more initiative on that, but usually my philosophy in general is just the player tells me what they're trying to do, and I tell them what they need to roll for it. But that's a really good way to handle it too. Once.
Yeah, and
A good place to do too is deception. If they're trying to lie to somebody, there are 6 or 8 stats or skills in Traveler that actually lend themselves to that,
Oh yeah,
like persuade, bureaucracy, advocate. I mean, just name a
Streetwise.
couple.
Your
Streetwise,
Honor,
yeah,
my
exactly.
client.
Oh God, yeah.
I know quite a few lawyers, and yeah, they are good liars.
I did actually have a bunch of players that were trying to. I think they were trying to fix their ship, but they were going to be taking some stuff from a. Basically, they were trying to get it from the military part of a spaceport, and they ended up being so successful on a on bluffing their way with admin stuff, where they were just trying other different ways, but then they just basically faked some paperwork, and it ended up with a crate of nuclear weapons as a result.
The admin skill in Traveler is a GM's nightmare.
Oh, I love that skill.
Oh, you can do so much with bureaucracy.
I
You
had
can
an
be like-
admin 4. Guy had admin 4. It was his best stat. Oh my god!
Oh my
do a lot
god,
with
that's
him.
scary.
Yep.
Yeah, I was in a game where a guy basically made somebody who was an invalid. They were doing the Captain Pike thing, you know, like in the chair. But they had admin 4, so everywhere they went, this person fucked everyone else through just use of government paperwork. Was just like, oh, there's some pirates on that moon. It's like, well, where do they buy gas? Okay, let's make sure that these guys are barred from buying food, gas, medicine, all of these other things. Let's purge their medical records from the system. Let's make sure they get the wrong medication next time they need it. Just all of these things where people have to interact with a system, and just made sure that every interaction with that system was plagued, so that eventually they made pirates quit through bureaucratic nonsense. Like the pirates were just like, you know, it's really hard to be a pirate anymore. It's not the same. No one sells us gas. I mean, just really destroyed them emotionally by making things incredibly hard.
I had a character, Antba. He was a noble, and he had just an insane admin stat. But because he was a noble, when he showed up to Worlds, he started abusing. He really started abusing his admin skill and doing this kind of stuff. I started having him getting called into the whenever they come across some kind of like imperial backwater world that doesn't have a noble on it, he now has to deal with the bureaucracy and deciding like what does the imperium want to happen between the locals fighting over the you impregnated my daughter. No, 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 you impregnated her. And like back and forth and stuff like that. And he's like, oh shit, do I want anybody to know I'm a noble and use this admin skill?
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Do you want that bonus to social standing roles? Well, then you got to play the game.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna a bunch of my guy like all but one of my player characters got a knighthood because they did some cool shit. One of them already had it and hit it for like half the game, but now it's they got knighthoods and they're gonna get tasked to go escort some diplomats.
Oh, nice.
And that's I'm gonna throw. They've done some crazy shit. They they were on a shuttle and they pushed a 1-ton World War II bomb off of the trunk basically onto a free trader. They've killed a bunch of people, but I'm going to see how they can handle a state dinner. That might be the most dangerous encounter yet.
I like to make this the most ridiculous like encounter for nobles. Like just make up the craziest thing. Like we want to burn this psyker at the stake because they're a witch. Okay, but not only can he just not say no, he has to really explain it to him so they don't burn him too, or the player too.
Yeah, so they don't rebel against the Imperium, and then
Exactly.
he gets charged with incompetence for letting that happen.
Yeah, so just put them in the stickiest situation where they start abusing that. Like I said, with the social, like you said, not I, but you said, if the social status comes responsibility. Another question: why do you think people should play Traveler?
Fun. First and foremost.
You can always keep it fresh, or you can make it be the same thing over and over. It's harder for you to run out of stuff to do.
Yeah, Traveler is a game where if you write this Wild West setting and your players go, fuck, I don't like cowboys, and they just walk off, you can go, okay, and then you can make the Wild West bad guys chase them into cyberpunk. You can just be like, all right, let's redress these scenes, and the same paper dolls are gonna kill you, and you're like, God damn it, all right, fuck. And so you can just constantly remix things. It's a constant remix, and that's what's wonderful about Travelers. Anything goes. And if shit isn't in the universe, why not make a planet where it is? And you can do that. You can just go, oh, this planet is the planet where everyone communicates with opera.
Yeah, everyone. It's all like Darmok.
Yeah, Darmok
Yep.
and Jalad
Oh,
at
God.
Tanakh.
Oh,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you
Yeah.
can do that. You can
yeah.
do whatever you want. You can say, oh, the local dialect is opera. And you're like, what? And it's like everyone sings to each other. You have to.
When we did Jump Point, which is a mini Traveler convention we did back in November, my youngest son Adam went ahead and ran Traveler. He hadn't run it before, but I needed a body, and so he did it. But we ran the exact same game. I wanted to do a little social experiment, and we used the same characters, same everything. And in my game, they had to get across the starport that was under attack from local rebels. And in my game, the guys were using stealth and moving from building to building and all these other skills. In his game, they looted an armory and got their hands on some RPGs. And they just shot their way through. And at one point forgot they were trying to get to their ship because they were so busy just blowing stuff up. That's why. Because you can do anything. These are the identical scenarios. He had all my notes. And yet they were completely different games. And it was just a bunch of fun. And that's what you can get. It's...
I actually stole that scenario when you put it on your channel. And
Okay.
I ran it in my campaign. Sadly, OBS didn't work for me that day. But yeah, I actually ran that. My players try to go sneaky. Then they just went on full on eastbound, or was it? No, not eastbound and down the convoy. Just went right through the local rebels and with truckers. It was great. It was like, oh shit, we're playing a trucker movie now.
Like the song Convoy.
Yeah, and more like the movie, but yes, the song came from the movie.
But
okay.
and that's fine. Like I've seen a Traveler game where someone landed on a planet, and because of atmospheric conditions, you can only land at like the pole. And so as soon as they get down on the planet, they think, oh, it's going to be this weird frozen penal colony like Star Trek 6, where they're like, ah, yes, welcome to Rura Penthe. No one can get off. This is the graveyard for aliens or whatever. And they find out, no, what they really need was some brave souls to get some medicine to the other pole, which is currently closed, and the planet like flips orbit like every 3 years. And they're like, oh, cool. So they think it's going to be like The Thing. No, it was like Mad Max. They had to cross the whole planet, and in between were all these failed civilizations, waypoints, wayposts. Everyone was trying to fucking kill them. There was like 2 pirate camps. There was like 3 collapsed governments. There was just all sorts of stuff to fight through. They get to the other place just in time for the poles to flip, and they're like, oh, well, this is the only place. We don't need these supplies anymore.
We'll pay you half.
Yeah, they're like, we don't need this medicine anymore. We've got it piled up. Who cares?
Yeah, that's I got a character that I need to do more with, an NPC called Buddha Joe, who I kind of want to
Buddha Joe.
Oh, I love Buddha Joe. I kind of want to set him up as him and his crew as the rivals to them. So when they want to get a job, they're he's going to come back in the future. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to put him in there. So it's basically trucker movie, like it's their trucker rival, trying to get the cargo before they do, and the such.
Well, if your players are doing speculative trade, rules is written, at least for your edition. There's often very limited amounts available, so you could just run it as like, say, you want to move precious metals, right? So let me open up the book. So
And
there's
like Buddha Joe comes over like, hey man, I tell you what, I'll pay you twice as much as they do.
Yeah. So
that's actually how he
one
talks in my game, but so
yeah. So there's like he looks like the main character from Megas XLR, which is great.
Yeah, but he's wearing he's wearing the Big Trouble in Little China T-shirt, Jack Burton's.
Yeah. So there's like 1d6 tons of precious metals on this asteroid colony, and Buddha Joe swooped in and bought it all, or he outbids the players or some shit. The other thing you can just do is like the players pass up like the randomly generated mission or whatever you had for them. Is like, oh, that doesn't pay enough. Well, Buddha Joe did it, and now Buddha Joe's in good with the patron, and he's getting all these benefits from it further on down the line.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
doing that.
I didn't even
Yeah,
think of
or-
that. That's a good idea.
Yep.
Yeah,
You get them in
or
good
like,
for doing a favor. Yep.
yeah, or they're both hired for the same thing, just by different people. When I was in a Shadowrun game, our GM made the Nega party where they were all like other versions of our player characters, and oftentimes we both got hired to, you know, steal the same thing for different people and shit. So we'd get through all the security and shit, and then we'd run into them in the vault, and we'd have this horrible point blank gunfight. And it was like, yeah, all right, well, I'll see you this weekend. You know, we still hang out with them and shit.
How's your wife doing?
Yeah.
How you're pointing a gun at him?
No, we had one where it's our team's medic and mage was this horrible war criminal guy. Like he got his backstory was he became sinless because he did a bunch of unethical research and then got framed for even worse unethical research that he didn't actually do.
You should have
so
just joined you should have joined the Megacorps. He would have been good.
Yeah, well, no, he got the Megacorps burned him. So,
Oh, yeah.
well, the CDC burned him, and that setting the government's actually still pretty powerful. So he had this irrational hatred of the CDC. Anyway, he was always like, you know, we're gonna pump in, you know, toxic gas this and APDS that, you know. And then his rival, you know, comes in and is like, my friend, you have to give up. These are rubber bullets, but you need to give up. It's like, mine aren't rubber bullets, and he just blasted the guy point blank, and then patched him up enough so Doc Wagon would,
But yeah,
would be able to pull
that's
him out.
a great thing to put into Travelers, other Travelers who are the
Yeah.
characters.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And if you use the shipping activity index from Journal of Travelers Aid Society 3, it'll tell you like how many ships will be in a given port based on population and port rating.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to pick that up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really useful. Good adventure in there too. Rescue on Rui.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real good one.
Yeah. Is there any modules that you guys think that people should run if they're gonna do their first Traveler campaign?
I liked the one. Gosh, I can't think of the name of it. I ran it not too long ago. Where you're going to get the abandoned scout ship.
Oh, high and dry.
Yeah.
Thank you, High and Dry. I
That
ran
one's hilarious.
Oh, that's a lot of fun, and it's a great intro because they're starting out with a ship, but they have to go get it. And there's all these various social things blocking them, and then of course physical things.
Terms
It's a
and
really
conditions
very-
may apply.
It's
Yep.
a very interesting like little society that
Yes.
they
Yeah,
for that
Walston is
planet.
god awful.
Walston,
I
yeah.
will say, if players get a grab vehicle from their character creation, that invalidates about half the adventure.
That's- well, my players had the thought because the other group had the grab vehicle. Well, they thought, well, these guys left aboard a ship. They didn't take the grab vehicle with them. It's still on the planet. So they bribed the right guys and stuff and got access to it. And yeah, cut out about half the adventure. But I was able to
still
compensate with other stuff.
Well, that's the thing.
And-
If you're gonna allocate the resources towards having certain capabilities, you know, that's a reward for it. But
Exactly.
you have limited space on a ship, especially if you have like something that's under 500 tons, like most player characters do. So you can't have all the Jim Bant supercars and World War II howitzers and shit. You got to make choices.
And how they use it is also another really big thing. Is like you said, figuring out a ground vehicle. The problem solving of I think more or due to the lethality of Traveler, it's more about problem solving than it is actual combat.
For sure.
Yeah. In
I have a
fact,
player-
middle players. So go ahead.
I have one player who's getting into drones. He wants to use them in a very offensive manner. And
Nice.
he's really, really working the Traveler rules to be able to use drones to be different remote platforms for whatever he wants to do. And I'm applauding it because he's not one that's read the books. He's just asking me how would I do X, Y, or Z, and we're sitting down and talking about it. And that's one of the things I love about this game too.
It reminds me in the Traveller 2300, the Mongoose ones, they've put in some drones. An undersea UAV, basically a recon drone, like a quadcopter, a really small micro drone, And the one I like is the Giscard S series attack drone, which is it's got a 6mm machine gun and a bunch of plastic, so it can just loiter munition if it wants to.
My favorite application of a drone in Traveler was I saw a hilarious, and I just do mean hilarious application of a drone where they had said, no guns, no weapons on this planet. And it's a very high-tech planet. No guns, no weapons.
Yeah, all the
And,
police have plasma guns. They'll fuck you up.
Yeah, well, so no, even the cops didn't. It was
Oh, okay.
basically,
Demolition
Demolition Man,
Yeah.
where everyone was just very Roddenberry, sweet and kind. And that's fine. But one of the players goes, so what kind of drones do they have? And the DM starts to quibble a bit because he realizes where this is going. And I'm sitting at the table with some other people starting to slowly smile because, my friend Dave was a psychopath when it came to breaking games, especially when the DM is being arbitrary.
My
And so
favorite kind of
Dave's
player.
idea, so Dave's idea was like, he's like, are you telling me that they have drones that pick things up and deliver things, like put them back down, pick things up and then put them back down? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, okay. So he buys one of these drones and, activates it and he just starts programming it. And so basically he has the drone circling wherever they're talking. And whenever there's a problem person, they have the drone pick someone up and just carry them 100 feet in the air and let them go.
Oh, that's great.
And so as it turns out, no matter how tough someone is, if their legs are fucking broken, not as tough. Amazing. So it's like, wow, we don't have any guns, but his legs are broken and he can't do, not a tough guy with broken legs. If your legs look like pretzel, you lose. You cannot do anything.
That's
so
amazing.
that's all that happened in that Traveler game. In that whole session was drone pick people up, drone drop people on pavement.
I thought it was going to be the Hellfire R9X where it just shoots the blades out on the sides.
No need.
Yeah,
He just goes, he
just
fell
upped it even
down.
more.
He fell down. It happens all the time. Like
Yeah.
the local super police do not have a forensic machine that can scan that someone was picked up and dropped by a drone. You just have some travelers with their hands in their pocket going,
just
yeah, I
envision,
saw him
like,
fall down.
The cop going like, "What happened to you?" and his legs are all mangled, and the drone's still floating there,
Yeah.
intimidatingly.
My favorite is the flying sword, where you can just take a sword and just give it an anti-gravity drive and a hunter-killer brain. So you can just fight with it normally, but then you can throw it and it'll just fly around.
So you're talking about like a hover spear that just flies through the air and stabs people?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's in the robot handbook. And then, but the other thing that is hilarious is it has tactics military too. So you can be like, you can be like,
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's like magic sword. How do we clear this building?
Drop a JDAM on it.
So it really is going around sword fighting. It doesn't need to parry, but it still is.
Oh yeah, it can parry. Well, it should parry because it has only like one hit point. But yeah, so you can throw that in York. You just have this, god king barbarian guy who wins every battle, but he's just talking to flying sword.
Oh yeah. I'm planning on bringing a lot more of the Yoramarni to the forefront of the campaign. I'm actually running a module, big long-term module but I'm doing more of an episodic between the big events. So it's more kind of like Star Trek original series between each of the events. But if you go and look over the big picture, it's going to be kind of more of Deep Space Nine last few seasons.
Yeah, I've only just started DS9.
Oh man, that's the best Star Trek.
It is.
Where I'm making Goat watch what I like to call the cycle. And the cycle is something I do just as personal care every year. Every year I will watch in order TOS, TNG, DS9, and I will get to about Equinox and Voyager. And then I've had enough.
I can't stand
And
Voyager myself.
Equinox is a good two-parter. It's a really well-written two-parter, and it's very dark. And it's like a what would you do on the far side of the universe story. And I'm like, that's a really good episode. The Year of Hell, also a very good episode. But the problem is you got to sit through a lot of other ones in between. And you've got like Janeway going, there's coffee in that nebula. And you're like, ugh.
I love they're trying to get home and they stop off at every Stuckey's to look around.
Yeah, it's
Put the
like
pedal to the metal. Let's go home.
it's like Scooby Doo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like, all right,
Yeah,
gang,
exactly.
split
Yep.
up. Look for sandwiches in the floorboards.
Yeah. Well, we used to call the first few seasons of Deep Space Nine. It was Deep Sleep 9 because
It's
it
a
was,
slow. Well, it's
it is.
slow,
It's
but
a slow starter.
if you rewatch DS9 all in order, you'll realize for the first few seasons they are setting it up.
Oh yeah,
They are setting up
They were.
every little. It's like an opera where they
They're
go,
character
okay,
building.
exactly, and they do a really good job with it.
If only the station would have let them actually do more episode or not episodic or saga. Oh, I forgot my words right now. Wow.
Continued.
Yeah.
Continued
So
episodes?
continue. So each of the episodes are playing off each other instead of trying to hide that in the actual episodes.
Yeah, like
It's-
Babylon 5 used to.
Yeah, Babylon 5 is great. It was kind of I'm actually stealing Tex's words here. Is it was trying to be a space opera with a soap opera budget.
I didn't invent that phrase, but I like it, so I say it, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
makes me feel better.
There you go.
But it's 100% correct.
It does remind me there was a Babylon 5 supplement for Traveller. Actually,
It does
coming.
not. If you said there is a Stuckey's gas station supplement for Traveler, like Stuckey's 2400, yeah, I'm sure.
Well, it's such a fluid system. You can do anything with it. It's so just easy to use and easy to modify for what you want. As in Traveler, not Babylon 5.
Right.
So-
Traveler's good, depending on the edition you're playing. Unfortunately, like Mark Miller's Traveler was a little rough to play.
Yeah, 5. I read Traveler 5, and it's
No,
At
not
first
T5, the one from the 90s.
oh
T4.
I haven't touched that yet.
Oh,
I
that's-
read T5, and it was like reading the Necronomicon at some points. I got
It is.
yeah,
I
that's,
spent-
that's very reassuring that you're saying that. I'm glad it's not just me being dumb.
Oh no.
I've heard the same on reviews. I've never played it. I've only played Mongoose myself, but I've heard.
But what's
that,
great
yeah.
with Traveler is you can take whatever you want. Like you could be like, I steal ideas from this, I take the setting from that, and I'll use the mechanics of X. That is perfectly in line with Traveler. Whatever you
Traveler
want to
map is
I did
is
a whole
based on
session
T5.
stealing from Johnny Carson.
So I think I got a
Let's
quote
see.
from was it an interview with Mark Miller, and he basically talked about it. But one of the things at the end was talking about T5 is Mark Miller doesn't play T5, at least according to this article. He plays classic Traveller. Traveller 5 is for people who want a game that will provide all the answers for them.
There you go.
It's an audience that Miller wants to please, but he himself is not that audience. He built the game he wanted to play 40 years ago. He's still enjoying it. To quote
And
from
that's-
the Tales
and
to
that's-
Astound blog.
And that's more than reasonable. I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I know people who are, I mean, famously, I want to think it was Critical Role, Matt Mercer said that, yeah, typically they play Pathfinder. Like between them and their friends, they play Pathfinder. But you know, for TV, they play the commonly accessible game. They play the common denominator, and that's more than fine. That's more than fine.
And Traveler has had a lot of editions, at least a dozen, I know. And they each have stuff to bring to the table. Mega Traveler gets slammed a lot, but Mega Traveler actually has a lot to
Mega
add
Traveler
to.
had some really good
menu.
art.
It had some good art, and actually there's some really good articles and supplements for Mega Traveler. It's just it was one I ran for years, and it's got a soft spot in my heart.
And aren't you doing a series right now on Mega Traveler? Isn't that the Rebellion era?
Yes. I'm looking at each of the factions, and then I'm going to go deeper into the developments and then into Hard Times, which was an excellent supplement toward the end of Mega Traveler. What it was like to live in an Imperium that's basically collapsed around you, going into the Dark Knight.
Yeah, the second Dark Knight, isn't it?
Yep.
And for those who don't know, think we're stealing Warhammer terms. Warhammer stole this from Traveler.
Warhammer is copy paste very badly from 90 things. I had
Exactly.
somebody.
Yes.
Sons of Judge Dredd and all
Yep.
of
Well,
that.
I had somebody
Terminator.
the other day. I had somebody the other fucking day. I shit you not. Try to convince me that 40K invented the navigator houses and navigators folding space. And I was like, hey, check
No,
this out. There's
Dune.
this book called Dune,
Dune,
right?
yep.
And it was written in the 50s. And they're like, well, Dune copied that. And I was like, well, not without a time machine, bud.
I read Dune in high school. That's an old book.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, it's I understand not being socially aware. I mean, again, I'm autistic. I understand not being socially aware of the great zeitgeist of cultural things that all feed into stuff. But I also think that if you think that one group of people invented all the tropes in sci-fi, you're smoking crack.
Yeah.
Traveler is a root of so many sci-fi things. It is a root of so many sci-fi concepts that have been used, borrowed, and had their serial numbers file off. And they're way more popular than the root of it, which is bullshit in my opinion. But I think that if people started playing Traveler, they would go, oh shit, that's where this is from. Oh shit, that's where this is from.
No, yeah,
That's my sentiment. Yeah, exactly. And with just like with watching TOS.
Yeah, since I started playing Traveler, I've been going back and seeing some of the science fictions, some science fictions that are based after it. I'm like, wait a minute, I think Traveler did that one actually first,
Yeah.
and I'm
And
actually
probably better. Probably a lot
probably
better, too.
yeah, because you can expand that on the player. So, I think we're gonna leave off with this last question: is what is your favorite thing about Traveler?
Anything
Guns in
goes.
space.
Let's go across left to right on the on our board. So let's start with CJ.
My favorite thing.
What do you think it does best?
You got to think about it. Myself,
I need a moment to think about.
okay. Just myself. My personal thing is, I love the deep lore of the universe, but I like how it's hands off at the gaming, where you as a GM and your players are at. So it's really hands off of like what's going on. You can kind of make up just anything you want, but it's a very deep universe on the macro, but on the micro where you're playing, you have nothing. You got to make it up as you go. Is one of my favorite things. It gives you a lot of an open sandbox creation of anything you can do in it. And you can literally do anything. Go from fighting Stone Age barbarians who are while you're shooting lasers at them to a cyberpunk universe. Yeah, or cyberpunk world, not universe, but yeah. That's what this. It leaves you open to everything, but still has that deep lore like Frank Herbert, the Dune universe, or Warhammer, or Shadowrun, and it's. I guess a lot of people have actually criticized this as the living universe of Traveler, which may have been an earlier game of doing a living universe. I'm not going to say the first, but it had a living universe. A lot of people didn't like it, but I kind of like the lore on it. But if CJ, if you're not ready yet, if we can go to Goat and come back to you.
I do agree that the thing I do like is that it's not difficult to roll your own setting, your own universe, and there's also a nice variety of settings out there. You know, if you've got an idea for a sci-fi universe, you can build that, or if you just want to make your own sector, there's some nice rules for that. It's also a very it's not a difficult system to learn as well. It's not a difficult system to learn. If anything, the mental overhead is where you're managing with like all the players' actions, but you can generate a setting for your players without much difficulty. And if you read something interesting in a sci-fi book recently or something, you can then go out and create that. You've got all the fundamental building blocks there for you.
Yes, and also the building blocks using the UWP, the random generated code for worlds, is really fun to go and when you look them up, you can kind of create like one of them. I had a high tech, but also a planet that had no technology. So I had to figure out why there's no technology. I said the people who are in charge of this planet control technology, and that's how they maintain their power. And they
I
were
think one of the interesting examples, as I saw recently, is it was a vacuum, or basically a world with really low gravity or whatever, but it had huge population that it rolled up in, and I linked a picture for you there. But they came up with the idea, well, it's a bunch of O'Neill cylinders. It could be like 10,000 O'Neill cylinders orbiting a star or something like that.
Okay.
that'd be really
Which is might be an interesting idea, because it was
Yeah.
like disparate governments. So imagine all these delicate space stations at war with each other.
Space Station
good.
13. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of that one. They're all in computer space, but they're fighting against each other on the internet. Star Trek
Tron?
original series episode.
Oh yeah, where the people have to
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, the simulation says, our guys, the president's playing Hearts of Iron 4, and in the game he blew up the city. So now 10,000 people have to walk into the die chamber.
Exactly.
A Taste of Armageddon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great episode.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
great fucking episode.
And what do you think is the best thing about travel?
Well, a lot of it we've already said, so I'll say one we haven't mentioned yet. Traveler allows you as a GM to offload a lot of the work onto your players if they bother to learn the rules and have the initiative. So, like in the one where I'm a player, I just do all the trading every time we go port to port. And I just do that. My GM doesn't have to do any input unless there's something special going on. If your players are doing stuff like wilderness refueling, or they're just exploring stuff that isn't, and they're not facing human opposition, where there aren't other characters involved, they can just roll that shit themselves and let you know what happens, unless there's a wrench in the mix you want to throw in as a GM. So like
Which
landing
normally I do.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the one I'm a GM, I have to baby my players. But all right, guys, are you gonna try any speculative goods, or just topping up on freight? And then I have to do the math. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I like to get my characters to go out there and like actually go out and find the cargo. I don't like
That's
giving
a lot
it
of
to
fun.
them.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, you just tell them, hey, this is a situation. What do you do? You don't really. I end up just trying to give them suggestions so they make a decision faster.
Oh yeah,
Which is
and,
is a
that's
habit.
that is a downfall of Traveler. Sometimes admin can take up a lot of time.
If you can
Yeah.
do if you can do arithmetic, you can do that, handle that just fine. I mean, we have Excel.
Yeah,
It's not 1977.
I'm a pen and paper kind of guy, and I can do it, so it's easy.
There you go. Tex?
If you want to rob a train riding a T-Rex, which you bought at a shady supermarket 2 worlds away in the company of a robot programmed to act like Pancho Villa, Traveler's your game.
Yeah.
It really is.
Traveler is a game where anything goes. Anything goes, and you can have fun with it. There are very few games that let you cut the little fun pictures of all the things in comic books and pulp nonsense that you loved as a kid, and to weave them into one tapestry of just fun. It's all the little toys in your toy box you had as a child, all your plastic green army men, all your little things coming together. And Traveler can be everyone else's toy box too, where everyone can take what they want and you can make it exactly the way you want it, with as much or as little seriousness as you like. It's Mel Brooks presents space opera, at least at my table.
Yeah, I'm usually the Mel Brooks, but my players actually kind of tone it down to a more serious level, I think.
Well, that's their loss.
Yeah. You gotta have the bad guys just talk about how they're gonna commune with the crystalline entity. Just
The
to let your player-
Inquisition, what
Yeah.
a show. The Inquisition,
Yeah.
here we go. Da-da-da-da. Yeah, I
And,
mean, come on.
Page 121. What do you think is the best thing about Traveler?
Dying in character creation brought me in, but honestly, the space aliens keep me. The almost fully realized alien races, the idea of being able to just make your own alien race, and you being the alien in their space, I've really liked it. There's so much role playing there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
truly the aliens outside of the Aslan and the Varger, who are are alien. The aliens in Traveler are very alien and very different, and
Yes.
especially
Also,
like
Traveler has a metal album. That's another thing that nobody's mentioned so far. It
It
has
has-
a metal
yes.
album
Yep.
Yes, it
that
does.
is
Yeah.
really
weird-
good.
The weird
Really
Lord
good.
Slow fag.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've actually reached out to them to see if they want to do a one shot. They said yes, but sometime after a certain date, and then I got busy moving overseas, so it never happened. They are
Oh,
really, they are
man.
really nice people, and if they listen to this, I'm gonna hit you guys back up, and let's try to do this again.
Yeah, just if
Yeah.
they listen to
Yeah.
this, gentlemen, you guys are fucking amazing. Serious. It just
Down and
it's-
out on the Solomani Rim.
Yeah, I have driven through
That line
hell
right there-
traffic.
That
Yeah,
line right there is
cranking
why I'm playing on the Solomani Rim.
Yeah.
It's there. It's a great album. Again, what setting has this out there in RPGs? Yes, there's some D&D music stuff, but it's just generic sci-fi or fantasy tropes and crap. They have a Traveler album that feels like it's from the universe, like it's something that would be playing over the speakers at an auto repair shop.
Totally does. It's one of it's one of I listen to it all the time, and like my heart, like I'm pretty picky about my metal. If it's not talking about like Forgotten Gods, Ancient Quests, and like slaying dragons, I don't want to fucking hear it. But I play this, and my buddies who are like into like hardcore mainstream metal, like whoa, what are you listening to, dude? And like they're now all rocking like slow fag t-shirts and stuff now that it's really
again
spread.
great. It feels like 1977 in space. You're gonna need a jean jacket. You're
Bell
gonna
bottoms.
need to have an REO Speedwagon cap, and you're gonna need to haul ass. It's great.
I feel called out on that one.
Don't worry, we're all in the same thing. Except I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
own a Trans Am yet.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we're done
Oh,
here?
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having
Thank
us
you.
and proving
Yeah,
that this is like
appreciate
the
you doing
best
this, yeah.
universe.
Yeah,
Seriously.
yeah. I'd like to talk about if you guys ever want to come back and do another nerd talk. If this is successful, I'd love to have you guys here.
I'm in for one when John can be available. John Watts. We can do
Yes,
some on Cepheus.
I think that might be our the next one I want
Yep.
to do.
Oh,
Is
that's
I'd
how
be
you
in on
pronounce
that.
it?
Cepheus is great.
Yeah,
Okay.
is it Cepheus, correct?
It's Cepheus, yeah.
Do you
That's
want to
the
explain
Traveler.
that? You want to explain this to people who want to maybe see the follow up?
Oh yeah. Cepheus is the Traveler open game license and all that stuff that happened earlier this year that I'm not going to go into. But it's basically a 2x6 role playing game, but they took John Watts in particular took it and put it in his own universe. So he's in a universe where there was a stable wormhole that destabilized, and now humanity's cut in two parts. And he has not introduced space aliens yet, but he says he's going to. And I've looked at a couple of the books on the channel. I've read a lot of his stuff, and there is so much stuff you can just take and put into your game out of his books. It's tremendous. And I think Cepheus has helped the Traveler Renaissance really kind of keep going, and I hope the OGL stuff gets resolved.
Yeah.
Although
No, go ahead,
Go ahead.
CJ.
I suppose it just reminds me on a final point, there is actually something maybe should be mentioned, is that there is a very large community. There's an official Traveler Discord. There are a couple of published fanzines, the Freelance Traveler fanzine, the
Yeah.
Cepheus Journal fanzine.
yep, that's really good.
There is a huge community about this game, and you take a look at the fanzines. They've got lots of writers. You've got lots of very talented, very good people coming out with all sorts of ideas and things to write about, and several blogs. And you've got Zidani Base and some other sites as well, and like even like these ancient sites that are somehow still running with these very obscure subjects on travelers and in some of the more obscure settings, for example.
And like you said, there's still chat rooms for travelers still active. They've been active since probably the 90s.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's a Usenet group.
But yeah, the Cepheus engine is really really good to look up. Any other Traveler things you think we didn't talk about, guys?
The old box games. There are 6 or 8 that go with it. There's a lot. They're old, and they would need to be spiffed up a little bit, but they're a lot of fun. And you can build so much into your universe doing that.
And which ones are those?
Well, Dark Nebula talks about some of the Aslan conflict with the Imperium. The Frontier War, it was the main thing when they did the Fifth Frontier War in the late 70s, early 80s, that really let you play the war. Invasion, I think, was another one. That was the Soleimani Rim War. And then we had Snapshot, which was porting actions and interpersonal combat, and then Mayday was ship-to-ship combat.
Interesting.
But in Fifth Frontier War, you're commanding fleets and moving them about, and you are kind of the master. It's a really good game.
Yeah, I'm. If you ever if you ever need have a way of running that on like a virtual tabletop, I'm down to play.
Oh, I
And do you
have no
guys do
clue.
any? I know CJ has brought this up. Any of you guys ever played 2300 AD Traveler?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
I haven't. I wanted to run it for a long time, and I've only recently like got back into it. And I've been making a whole thing on the on Foundry, just basically putting all of the stuff in there and all the images and such for maps. But I have yet to run it, and I do want to run it, and I actually want to run it during the second invasion for players. So.
If you need a player, you hit me up. And page 121, you said you also have experience with this game.
oh yeah. I bought it back in the 80s when it came out. And it's not Traveler as in the official Traveler universe. They just wanted to sell units, so they threw the name Traveler on it.
Does it use the same system?
No,
Really?
well, not in the 80s anyway.
No, it still has its own separate FTL method. Thankfully, you don't have to take the relative star positions and then put it through a mathematical formula. So actually, somebody's already done all that. But that's one of the things you had to do with the stutter warp calculations. It's really nice, and as I understand, actually the whole setting was born out of some sort of tabletop thing they played. I think it's like some variation of Risk or something, where the French became the dominant power, the spacefaring power for the setting. So
I'm super excited about Space Cajuns, so that's why I want to play the game.
It's like like the I'll mention the guy, this ET Ranger. I don't quite know how you pronounce that, but it's one word. ET Ranger has basically done a whole thing on the.
Étranger, stranger.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm never good at those foreign languages.
Étranger. S'il vous plaît.
Yeah, that's how I speak French.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've got a whole different things on like.
I had to take French in Texas, so I had a French teacher, I shit you not, who was like, he was like, "All right, repeat after me, y'all." And I mean, it was like that the whole time. It was really bad way to learn French, and not only that, but whenever you speak it later in life, offend your French friends all in one fell swoop. So it is worth it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I have to get going.
I just got the high sign.
I was about to close
dinner's ready.
Down. So yeah, dinner's ready. I gotta go and meet some people too. So thank you all for being here, and you guys have a good night.
Yeah,
All right,
you too.
thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Say to me no more, Apollo, say to me the job is done. And I say your words are hollow, and our work has just begun. Say to me we need the money just to feed the poor, And I say, gee, that's funny, it's for them that we explore. Say to me we should be fighting, say to me the world's at war. And I say we are uniting, people tired of war and more. Say to me there's too much danger, say we could be lost. And I say I am no stranger to danger, that's the cost. Say to me our world is dying, ready for its last hurrah. And I cry, keep on trying, we must find our Shangri-La. Say to me no more Apollo, say to me the job is done. And I say your words are hollow, and our work has just begun. And our work has just begun.